Hi, everybody. Welcome to Generation Movie. I'm your co-host, Rich Drees. I have no idea what happened to JW. Wait a minute, he's coming in. Um, Anyways, good evening. Hope everybody's doing okay while I sit here and stall while JW tries to figure out what's wrong. Um, Hope everybody is having a great start to their week. Um, I know we're anxious to get started as soon as JW gets here so we can talk. Oh, I'm tap dancing as fast as I can here, folks. Um, as you know, our film du jour is going to be the original Top Gun as part of our series on legacy sequels. So next week we can then talk about Top Gun Maverick. I'm sure most of you have seen it, and we will get to it as soon as we finish talking about some of the box office and news. Now that JW is showing up. Hey, hey, bud. What? I can't hear you. Can anybody else?
How about now?
Yeah, pressing the button works.
It's not that. All the settings. I usually have all the settings already set up, but for whatever reason, they all went wonky right during our opening. Anyway, welcome to Generation Movie on a Monday night. Rich did a bang up job holding up for me.
No, that was terrible.
It was fine. It was fine for what it was. First off, may the fourth be with you.
Mm.
And also with you, if you're a Catholic. Thank you for joining us. If you like what you hear tonight, we're going to talk about Top Gun. We're going to talk about legacy sequels. If you like what you hear tonight, like and subscribe on all these places. And we are now found all these places, all of these places.
All over the place.
All over the place. We're doing live streaming, and we're also doing all these places where you can find us. Is a little bit better and has us behind it. So all of these places you can find us. Like and subscribe. If you like what you hear tonight, we're going to talk about Top Gun, the original Top Gun 1986, celebrating 40th anniversary. We're also going to talk about Top Gun coming back to theaters next week and stealing IMAX screens in the middle of May. Just stealing screens left and right. We're also going to talk about its historical context, how the critics reviewed it in 1986, how we're going to review it tonight. We're also going to talk about production stuff and things that went on in the production of the film, and all of those things, and its legacy on cinema, as we're wont to do. But if you like what you see, we have our show every Monday night at 9 with me and Rich. Tuesday nights, we have Loud and Nerdy at 9 p.m., which is more of a pop culture show. Tomorrow night, we have a guest. We have Jeremy Ashley joining us. He's made this little movie called Meat Hook on Tubi. It's a very graphic, fun indie horror film. And he has his own little, he has Cutting Floor Films. So we're going to be talking to him on Loud and Nerdy. And then also the boys with technical defects. They've taken their mantle back. So Riot, Ryan West, Joe Ridgely, they talk all kinds of stuff. They are bi-weekly, every other week. So they just had a show last week. That means they won't have a show till not this week, next week. They'll probably have a show next week. Perfect, bi-weekly. If only I understood things like that. Anyway, we are going to talk about Top Gun tonight, but we do need to start with. Let's start with box office news. Who knew that the box office desperately needed a woman's touch?
Excuse me.
I know you said it.
Haven't I been saying this for weeks now? That this movie's going to do good?
Oh, it did better than good though. But what I think is interesting about it is it's an interesting thing that's happening. And I also think it's not just that it's a film geared toward females doing well. I think it's the beginning, Rich, of what could be movie theaters being hip again. going out, going to a movie, seeing a movie, enjoying a movie, coming home. I saw it. I don't think it's particularly great, but it is a pleasant trifle. It is characters you really like, actors that are very good, in kind of a workplace setting, comedy that we don't get a lot of. You have a powerhouse actress in Meryl Streep playing a character that everybody loves her as. You have Stanley Tucci doing excellent supporting actor work as I think he's actually the foundation. Like he's the heart of the franchise. There was a collective awe. There's a scene in the movie where he says something to Anne Hathaway's character, and it's so remarkable. The entire audience goes, "Oh!" You can hear. But the movie itself is okay for a sequel. And the interesting thing about it is billionaires are bad guys in this sequel, and there's one billionaire who's not a bad guy, who's a good guy. And then it's what's happening to magazines in general in the real world is kind of extrapolated out. It's fun. It's breezy. It's light. It's right at 2 hours. Like it is escapist entertainment. It's not, I was thinking this phrase for you this week. Not all heroes wear capes, right? And Stanley Tucci is a hero. Meryl Streep is a hero. Anne Hathaway, but not Emily Blunt. That's spoiler. Anyway, it's a really fun movie. It's not meant to be serious. I don't particularly remember meaningful scenes or dialogue or anything, but I came out of it breezy and happy. And apparently everybody else is happy because it grossed $76 million domestic. But the interesting thing is not the domestic take, Rich. The interesting thing is the international take. $156 million over a 3-day period for a worldwide box office total of 233. That's astounding. Because I don't necessarily view it as a movie that would be internationally. Do you know what I mean? Like it feels very American.
You don't think it would travel well?
No, I think it. Obviously I'm wrong about that. I don't mean it's travel well. I don't necessarily think it. Like I wouldn't necessarily like seeing it having to do big in the places it would need to do big to do $156 million over a 3-day span across the world. But it's like I said, it's got international locales. It's got Italy. It's breezy. It's very much escapist, feminine fare that it's geared towards a feminine audience, but everybody can enjoy it. So if you are a husband who owes your wife one, this is a perfect movie to just go and take the hit for the team. It is perfect. There's nothing like it's funny and it's a workplace comedy and it's Meryl Streep scowling at Anne Hathaway you could do a lot worse with that. Fun, rest of the movies in the top 10, Rich. Kind of all kind of sticking. Michael 44%, 54 million in second weekend. That's at 184 domestic already. Mm-hmm. Super Mario Galaxy only dropped 41%, 12 million. That's at 402 domestic. Project Hail Mary in fourth place, 8 million at 318 domestic. And then the other new releases, Hokum, again, a low budget horror film that I really liked, that I think is going to catch on, directed by Damien McCarthy, who did Oddity. Hokum is, by the time we get to Halloween, everybody will be talking about Hokum. But it came out this week. But it's Adam Scott, very cool, in an Irish bed and breakfast that you wouldn't want to go to, that his parents went to, and just creepy, and there's some nightmare fuel for people watching, not necessarily listening, but it's essentially what I described as a children's TV host that's an insane rabbit. So horrific, okay. But it's fun. It's Irish folklore. It's got a witch. It's not a ghost. It's super cool. I think people are going to be talking about it. But Box office, Rich. The interesting thing is, last year we had one or two hits that kind of kept the box office afloat. This year, there are hits everywhere, every demographic, every racial divide. There are hits all over the fucking place as we prepare for this summer. And I think that's a good thing. You know, and we're seeing, I will say I'm happy about the tracking for this movie.
Yeah, no, it's definitely very good. But I was going to say, though, is it going to hold? Can we hold that, pretty well for 3 weeks until Mandalorian and Grogu show up, which I think is going to do, like I said last week, it's just got to do Superman, the same work as Superman did. Remind people to come back to the theaters and that this franchise can be fun and a theatrical event. And then, going on from there. So as long as this kind of thing, and we've talked about how movie-going generates more movie-going. It gets you back into the habit of going to a theater a couple of times a month. So hopefully we're going to see actual results from us saying that over and over and over again. We're going to see the proof of what we've been saying as we go forward into through the summer and into the fall.
I did my recent box office derby. We're going to do on next week's episode of Loud Nerd. We're going to do a summer movie preview, and I think we're going to talk about box office things. But I was trying to piece together what's going to be the top 10. Mm-hmm. It's a real hard premise. Like what's going to be number one, what's going to be number two, because there are three or four movies that could be number one. Mm-hmm. Right. And then everything else will come after it. But as long as everything's clicking on all cylinders, now Rich is gone. This is amazing. Let's do comments while we're waiting. Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, friends. JW fell off the map. It's your show now, Rich. Maybe. Well, not really now, because Rich fell off the map. See how that works? You jinx people. Now your mic's not working. Oh, there it is. Okay.
There we go. Okay.
Hey, Gabriel, how you doing?
Moving a tab on my.
I am deaf. Thanks, Ken. How about this one? Ryan West, this is mean. It's mean-spirited. Best version of JW ever, the silent version. Not true.
You think that's mean? Go 2 more comments down.
There he is. Damn, I can hear him now. Laugh out loud. Shut up, Ryan. Shut up, Joe Ridgely. Work-life balance, baby. We're trying. I do want to talk to you. One of the things I do want to talk box office again. Kudos to the Devil Wears Prada crew. Also, kudos to the idea that we can open a summer without a major box office event film. It's just a different box office.
It's been a while. It feels like since we have not had a Marvel movie this past weekend.
Yeah, it has been a while. I was thinking about it as Free Comic Book Day happened. I do want to talk about an article that came out in Variety where they went through all of the different things on that's happening with the Star Wars movie streaming that I think is really interesting, because it kind of paints a picture of what's doing well, what's not doing, like the Star Wars movies that are doing incredible. And I was looking at it and I was like, I think it's a real interesting kind of like take on the state of the franchise as we get to Mandalorian and Grogu, right? The idea that for a lot of us, maybe Star Wars is a little bit dying, and and it's kind of in a rough place, but the streaming side of this is something we don't really see. You know what I mean? And I was reading the article, and it's just like, what movies are the most watched? What movies do people love more than the others? And it's an article that came out Variety. I'm trying to find the article. Give me a sec, because my computer is going so slow. Fun.
Was that the article that said roughly 33 billion hours streamed of Star Wars content from Disney this
Yeah,
past.
I have it. Okay, so 33 billion Star Wars hours of content, a billion minutes in 2025. So it's in honor of Star Wars Day. Nielsen has shared insight into people's viewing habits around one of our most beloved franchises, which show that it remains incredibly popular 50 years after the fact. 550 million hours of Star Wars content across linear TV and streaming in 2025. Of course, Disney Plus serves as the home, but like Star Wars films accounted for the biggest share, 44.2%. Live action shows are at 39%. Star Wars animated projects are at 16.8%. Documentaries around the franchise are like 0.2%. A New Hope was the most viewed title, followed by The Phantom Menace and then Rogue One, which I think is interesting. Andor is the most viewed live action series, followed by Skeleton Crew and The Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. I think that's interesting because the Skeleton Crew show never took off. And I don't know why it didn't take off because I had such a good time with it.
I enjoyed it.
I thought it was like the Goonies in the Star Wars universe. So I didn't understand why it didn't do well. Same with, I'm going to be honest, same with The Acolyte, which everybody's kind of talking about now. Do you
know what's been interesting the last couple of days I've seen on socials? A lot of people are coming out to, just bolster their love for Last Jedi. Just saying, oh yeah, this was a great moment. I think, it really was interesting how, Luke's ending where he basically sacrifices himself so the rebellion can escape and live for another day to fight, mirrors Ben's sacrifice in A New Hope, all sorts of things. And it was really heartening because, I will say that
movie gets a lot of shit, dude.
It gets
that movie gets a lot of shit.
Undeservedly so. Undeservedly a lot of shit. And for me, it's top Star Wars. It's like it's in the top 3. Alongside the original and Empire.
I think it's a very good Star Wars movie. I don't know that it's top 3 for me. I'm definitely Empire. Rogue One has jumped up because they built. The interesting thing about Rogue One is kind of jumped up around things is because Andor is built around Rogue One. So Andor started to take an interesting place in the universe for me. But I always
Andor is a very close 4 though for me.
Yeah,
Rogue One. Excuse me.
So the top 10 streamed Star Wars titles this May 4th, 2025. Andor was 1. A New Hope was 2. Phantom Menace was 3. Which isn't surprising because Phantom Menace was celebrating a anniversary last year, right? 25th anniversary of Phantom Menace. Empire Strikes Back was 4. Revenge of the Sith was 5. Clones was 6. Jedi was 7. Rogue One was 8. Tales of the Underworld was 9, and the Clone Wars was 10. So it's
interesting to think about, looking at those titles and going, what's recency bias? Okay, this past year, obviously, Andor was going to get a lot of views because we had a whole season drop. So everybody was like, oh shit, this is great. Oh, let's go back and watch the first season again as well.
It's been broken down, but Nielsen also has a breakdown of content by age group. So The Mandalorian is the most popular among Gen Alpha, baby boomers, and Gen Z loves the Clone Wars. Millennials and Gen X enjoy Andor, which I think is interesting because millennials and Gen X are always at odds in all these polls. But Gen X and millennials look at Andor and go, real life much? So it's kind of, I think that's super interesting. It's a really great little article by Variety where it kind of like, we have a love affair, right? The world has a love affair with Star Wars. We're always going to have a love affair with Star Wars. But every once in a while, it gets dinged. It gets dinged by loud members of the fan base that are that are like doing minority takes on things, where they're yelling at,
their opinion is not the majority opinion about Star Wars.
Right. And I just think, there's such a wide variety of Star Wars right now to enjoy. And we're only a couple of weeks, Rich, from this. Like, I desperately want this to hit. And I will say, even though it's still tracking below any other Star Wars film ever, the estimates have gone from 75 to like over 100, like right at 100 million for the opening weekend. Maybe as we progress, as we get closer and we find out, like, it's all based on whether or not it's a good movie, right? Like, if it's good, it could, the sky's the limit, right?
I do think at some point they need to say, this isn't going to be on Disney Plus for a while. If the window on this for getting it onto, PVOD and then SVOD is, like 3 months after it leaves the
Disney's
theater. They need to be
that.
kind of proactive. They need to be selling this more as a theatrical event, and if you miss it now, you're not going to see it until Halloween.
I think that's fair. I think the other side of it, though, is Disney has been pretty good with that, though. Like, if you look, like I told you, I think one of the things, the rumors going around streamers is tomorrow, Super Mario Galaxy is going to be on demand tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Available tonight at midnight for pre-order, like when the pre-order goes in. That's leaving money on the table. What I would also say is, I think Disney's been pretty good. Avatar was almost 3 months before it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Did you? Yep. Did you go to Disney Plus today at all?
Yeah, the Disney Plus today has been fantastic.
Yeah, I turned on. I went there because I wanted to watch the last 2 episodes of Maul Shadow Lord, which, by the way, fantastic. Those I could see really why good. Disney held those back from critics to keep a surprise. But when I clicked on the Star Wars tile, there's a big thing, Mandalorian and Grogu, and they had like 4 minutes of the early part of the film from what appears to be the first scene. And then they had like 3 little featurettes that were like 2 minutes each. So, they are kind of working and going, hey.
I will say one thing I am shocked about Mandalorian and Grogu, that before we get into our movie tonight, I am shocked that they're not having any fan events. Like, we had fan events last summer for Superman.
I thought there was supposed to be one.
Well, there's a fan event tonight, but it's only 25 minutes of the movie. And I just feel like that is the ultimate blue balls movie like, imagine going and paying to sit in the theater to watch 25 minutes of Mandalorian and Grogu and then coming out going, I'm super excited, but fuck, I'm pissed tonight. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I'm just taking a look here too. The some critics are going to start seeing it later in the weekend and into early next week. The social embargo lifts on May 14th. So that's next Thursday.
That's a good sign.
You'll start seeing some things. And then the actual critics full reviews are embargoed until the 19th.
I've already started this was my May 4th purchase today. Nice. I had a Mandalorian Whopper because I'm a fat guy, and but this is like, look at how nice. This is a very shiny metallic cup that doesn't really show up, but is the Mandalorian and Grogu cup. Like, I love that. Look at the little Grogu. Look at the little Mandalorian symbol. Full Mandalorian symbol. If you told me that a Mandalorian symbol was going to be on Burger King drink cups in 2026, I would have laughed my balls off when I was a kid. I would have been like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. But yeah, so it's out in full force. I hope it lives up to expectation. I'm very excited about it, because how could you not be excited about a Star Wars movie, especially The Mandalorian, of all the recent projects except for Andor, is the most wide open project that has the most ambition and also the most potential, right? Because the way the movie is looking to me is that it's going to be, I love the concept of Grogu and the Mandalorian just tracking down Empire scum. Like, killing fucking Imperials. Yes, let's go. And they're getting they're from Ripley. They're getting their bounties from Ripley. It doesn't get any better.
That's right, they are.
Damn straight.
Let me ask you a question.
42.
Yeah, a lot of love towards Last Jedi this week and such, and Star Wars in general. But I'm still seeing like this another, just kind of like a whoop, little bit of a bubble wave, what have you, of folks who are once again clinging to the idea that Lucasfilm is this close to decanonizing the sequel trilogy and everything, and Dave Filoni is gonna, do new sequels. Blah, 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 blah. It's ridiculous. I mean, I think you and I both know that this is ridiculous. I asked the person, like, "Oh, where did you hear that?" They sent me to some some YouTuber account that I never heard of, who was quoting somebody else who I also had never heard of, who says, "Oh, well, we were at Galaxy's Edge. The person playing Rey told us this, and it said the world between worlds might be broken, and that's how they're going to do it." And I'm like, and if they're at Galaxy's Edge and they're a base character,
you're right. You know what? They would definitely tell some. They would definitely tell some Rey at Galaxy's Edge. She would know all about it.
What the big corporate plans are. Yeah, she gets smell test.
So she gets spell. Well, and here's the thing: like the sequels happen. If they want to make new sequels, they can. Let's see what happens with Starfighter before we worry about Star Wars. And I think the thing about
I've also heard that.
Go ahead.
I mean, okay. I've also heard that they're also looking at they're going to move away from the Mandoverse going forward as well, because it hasn't been doing as great as some other stuff. And honestly, I'm like, well, the story of that is almost wrapped up to begin with. We go through Ahsoka 2,
Mandalorian,
season 2, and then we have a little bit more of to wrap up the Thrawn bullshit, and then we're done with all of that whole little section of thing. So
the interesting thing there is
it's like you're guessing because we're in the middle of we're at the beginning of Act 3 for this overall story.
Well, and I think, Rich, the thing is people want to have an idea of what's happening, right? I think that's the biggest thing that's happening, is that they want to know what's happening. And the Mandalorian Grogu, if the movie does well, their adventures can go. He lives to be 900. He's going to be 900 years old. He's a 50-year-old right now. So it can go on forever. So stop with that shit. The idea of decanonizing the sequels, nobody's going to get into that, because Rey is one of the greatest characters that the franchise has ever created. And also, no matter how much you hate the new trilogy, Force Awakens was good. Last Jedi was controversial, but I thought good and different. And then Rise of Skywalker is okay.
Ryan has a good comment here. All the way at the bottom. He's right too. In
reference to
Rey, absolutely nothing.
My cousin. Well, the other side of it is, Rich, the only other show that's bigger than The Mandalorian is Andor, and Andor is over. Like, we can't go any further with Andor. We've gone as far as we can go, because canonically, those characters have died. So we can rabble-rouse about whatever, but like, I'll give you an example. People bitch about the Acolyte, and then they're, I was talking about the Acolyte, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's awful. Oh, it's terrible." And I'm like, "Is it though?" Like, because the lightsaber duels are pretty good. Did they get in over their head early with stuff, and then not? But by the end of it, the writing was better, and the idea that they were going to bring in a whole new Sith Lord.
I think with the Acolyte, people wanted to see the Jedi at their height. And yes, it's set during the High Republic era, which is where you're supposed to have that. But also, what the Acolyte was doing was actually showing you the seeds of their growing era. And I think the Acolyte asked some interesting questions about the Jedi that people didn't want to think about. Because basically, let's face it, Padawans are child soldiers, which We
not only
consider
that,
a war
but,
crime.
like, right.
Um,
The Acolyte also asked tough questions like, do the Jedi just show up and cause more problems than they're worth? Like, they
do
show
the
up on that one
Jedi have
planet.
monopoly on the Force? No, no. There's other religions that have sprung up and around the Force. But
Well, yeah, like, and again, I'm not going to get into the ramifications of, you know, what happened with it, but it's just one of those things. Like,
mhm.
we've had things that have been good that everybody's kind of been like, oh well, I wish it were better. But like, Skeleton Crew was great. Skeleton Crew was fantastic. It was fun.
Skeleton Crew is a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. So I just hope that as we celebrate May the 4th and there's all these great stories about the franchise itself, that we can come together and not be assholes. Don't be an asshole. Just be, you can love Han, but you don't have to act like Han. You don't have to be smug every fucking chance you get with regards to Star Wars. And sometimes we can just have fun. Sometimes we can just enjoy things. I will say my favorite Star Wars movie is this movie, though, where nobody's enjoying things. Nobody enjoys anything. I think that's one of our problems, Rich, is that all the kids that grew up in the 80s with Star Wars, like you and I, The Empire Strikes Back is the greatest Star Wars movie ever made, but it's also the reason it's great is because your heroes are getting knocked down and they're going to have to get up. They're having a bad round in a Rocky movie and they have to get up, right? Yeah. And so what has happened recently with Star Wars is every time there's a bad round and characters get knocked down, or like we go, oh, they're not as strong as they used to be. My favorite, and we're going to end it here, but my favorite argument about Luke in Last Jedi and in Last Jedi, it's Last Jedi, but my favorite argument about Luke is they ruined my hero. They ruined my hero. And I'm like, my take has always been this. Who did your hero learn from? And they go, Yoda. He learned from Yoda. Okay. Yoda, we know from the prequel trilogy, we know that Yoda smelled everything out, knew things were bad, went to fight, got his ass kicked, and also kicked ass a little bit. And then what did Yoda do? Yoda left. Went into hiding. Trying to protect the other Jedi, but going into hiding. Then he took the two babies that are from Jedi, the most powerful Jedi who's become a Sith, took those two babies and put them into hiding. So the idea that your superhero Luke that we love would somehow become a hermit somewhere else, like Obi-Wan and Yoda, cut the shit. Who's his role model? Like, his role models were people that were doing this. Like, they were in hiding for years.
Decades.
So it's just, we get very wrapped up in our Star Wars, and the loudest fans and the squeakiest wheels cause the most fucking trouble. And I just want it said on this Star Wars Day, we have things to look forward to. There's good stuff. I think Starfighter is going to be great. It's a different direction for the franchise. I think Filoni and Favreau are good shepherds that will get us to the next level.
If you haven't been watching Maul Shadow Lord, check it out. It is so good.
It is good. It's very good.
Yeah. And
don't be an asshole. I'm out. Shut up, Ryan.
I meant to put this back up onto the Facebook page for Filmbuff Online, but a few months back, I wrote a feature. I wrote an editorial basically.
I don't think Clones is
on when Kathleen Kennedy was announcing her retirement, about being bold with the franchise and taking big swings. And I think that's sort of what the franchise needs to do again. I want to see Joseph Mangold's Birth of the Jedi film set 25,000 years before.
I would have liked to see a weird Steven Soderbergh Kylo Ren movie.
Oh
But
God,
hey,
yeah. I
just
want to
me.
see what the hell Taika Waititi has up his sleeve. You know, I want to see a Ray movie. I want to see a Ray trilogy. Why not? I want to, let's move forward along the timeline. Let's move backwards along the timeline. Big giant jumps. Let's do. It's a big galaxy. We don't have to always go to Tatooine. There's billions and trillions of stories there, literally. All those, every
Always ends
single
up
one
on
happening in the
Tatooine,
Star
man.
Wars
Always.
galaxy.
And if you need snow, it's usually Hoth, but maybe it won't be Hoth in Mandalorian Grogu. Anyway,
God, that was so annoying in some of those hardcover novels back in the day.
Yeah, always got to go to the same
Hoth. Why?
Here is the movie we're talking about tonight. We are talking about Top Gun. But here's the thing: even as we talk about this movie, right? The most interesting thing about Top Gun is, even if it's not a great movie, which it's not, it is a quintessential '80s movie, though, Rich. Like it is weird in that it is a compressed, compiled, perfectly engineered '80s action movie. And it's got Tom Cruise, Kelly McGillis.
Absolutely,
if they were digging and excavating for an action movie of the '80s, they would find a Top Gun VHS or beta or whatever cassette and be like, and then all of a sudden, like everything around them as they excavated the cassette, like a Danger Zone would be playing on all the speakers. But so the funny thing is, I don't know if you know the history of Top Gun. Let's talk about that a little bit as we start off with production. Production's interesting. In the 80s, one of the things that happened a lot that we don't talk about is that the primary inspiration for a lot of movies in the 80s were magazine articles. I know these things called magazines that you would buy at newsstands and read on planes.
I've read about them.
Yes, they're amazing. But there was an article called Top Guns by Aod Yone from the 1983 issue of California Magazine, which featured aerophotography by a pilot. It detailed the life of fighter pilots at the Naval Air Station in Miramar in San Diego, which is nicknamed Fighter Town, USA. And then what happened was they bought the article, Paramount bought the article, and numerous screenwriters turned down the project. But Jerry Bruckheimer and Don Simpson, who owned it. And by the way, everybody talks about Jerry Bruckheimer now, but Bruckheimer and Simpson were one of the greatest duos in the history of cinema. And Don Simpson, of course, died tragically in the late 80s, and Bruckheimer has kept it going for the most part. Not all the way, but recently he's made some attempts to get back into the game with big budget action movies. Anyway, they went on to hire Jim Cash and Jack Epps to write the first draft. They basically attended several Top Gun classes at Miramar, allowed by the United States Navy. They both got to fly in fighter jets, again allowed by the Navy. And then the first draft wasn't great, and basically, in some ways, was worse than the final movie. And then Simpson and Bruckheimer. The names that were floated to direct this movie, Rich, David Cronenberg was one of them. John Carpenter was one of them. Both declined. And Tony Scott, who's the brother of Ridley Scott, was hired on the fact that he had done a Swedish Saab commercial in the early 1980s where a Saab is racing down a fighter jet. That's it. That's how he got the job. So, you can't write this stuff. This is pure 80s magic. Anyway, people who are approached to play Pete Maverick Mitchell, right? Matthew Modine. This movie would have went nowhere. I love Full Metal Jacket, but there is not Matthew Modine is a great actor, Rich, but there is not a spot of charisma in Matthew Modine that would be enough to support this movie. And I say that with all due respect to Matthew Modine, the actor. But basically, Cruise got was swum around because of risky business. He was filming Legend when he was offered the part because basically he was what happened was Tony Scott talked to his brother Ridley, who was working with him, and said, and basically Ridley Scott sat down with Tom Cruise and said, "You should take this movie. My brother's directing it. They think it's going to be good." Other people that were, again in the running: Emilio Estevez, Patrick Swayze, Sean Penn. That would have been a very intense Top Gun. Rob Lowe, Charlie Sheen, Michael J. Fox. I can't even.
Mallory, I gotta fly a plane.
I'm gonna fly a plane, man. Great Scott. This thing is an 14.
No.
Ralph Macchio was also considered. Brooke Shields, Demi Moore, Julianne Phillips were all up in the running for Charlie, but eventually, even Julianne Phillips actually got a screen test with Cruise. Val Kilmer, Val Kilmer was a very serious actor in the 80s, took everything serious. He hated the script. He didn't want to do anything about warmongering, but he was under contractual obligations with the studio. He had just made Top Secret, which we talked about last year, and Scott's enthusiasm on the project led him to go. It led him to do it, and it's great that he did because Kilmer. In rewatching it, Kilmer actually would have been a much more interesting lead. Just in general, because I think Iceman is actually a much more interesting character. They get the full assistance to the U.S. Navy, right? So everything that was, everything is done especially amazing by the U.S. Navy. They get everything, and the sheer level of special thanks in the credits should give you an idea of how many Navy people were involved in the making of this movie, which, as it turns out, is impressive because this movie led to we're going to talk about it later when we get to Legacy, one of the greatest recruitment ads in the history of our military is this little movie from 1986 called Top Gun. We're going to talk about it. Well, basically, Navy helps out in every single way. They get rid of they're even given script approval where they basically change Charlie from an actual person that's enlisted to a person that's just a special contractor. So because they didn't want anything where it was problematic for people, other naval pilots to be fraternizing, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. They began filming Oceanside, California, June 26th. They moved to Miramar. They were able to film on site. Paramount paid a lot of money, and it's rumored that they paid almost $7,800 per hour, equivalent to $22,100 in our time. Probably more now because of the amount of jet fuel in the country. But they paid a lot of money to be able to actually fly real jets and real things. And it was all there. And they also had to take time from the pilots. So the pilots' flight time was used. They had to create fictitious MiGs. The MiGs became Northrop F-5s. And then the film was shot in a special Super 35 format with special lenses that were too large to fit inside the fighter jets. So they had to do reshoots wrapped around that. Reshoots on this movie
some of the model work there is immensely detailed, and to the point where when they filmed, I think it was the flat spin stuff as well as a few other things like some of the passes by, they just went out to a hill that was fairly high up so you wouldn't see the horizon. And with some, decent sized models of the planes, and basically just kind of threw them up in the air and filmed them.
Yeah,
all that flat spin stuff is model work where they just kind of, I don't know if they got a guy who makes pizza to go woo,
woo.
But But they had it up, and and bless them.
Yeah.
It seems so freaking low tech, and I kind of like it that because of that. But that's what it did. That's what it was. That's what it needed to be, and it looks amazing on screen though.
One of the things that comes up that is talked about, Art Shaw was a very famous acrobatic pilot. He was hired to do all the in-flight camera work for the film. He had to try to recreate the flat spin, and he was able to perform and capture it on camera. But basically, as they were doing it, Shaw's plane actually had a flat spin, and so his plane actually crashed, and he was lucky to, he died in the accident from this plane. So he was unable to recover from the spin. He crashed his biplane into the Pacific Ocean. Shaw's body nor the aircraft were ever recovered. And if you pay attention all the way to the end of the movie is dedicated to Art Shaw's memory. So he died actually filming this movie, creating the dead spin, and I was really intrigued by it. I looked up all the information. This guy was a master, like daring acrobatic flying that traveled the country and did all of these special things. And the thing they asked him to create, where Goose dies, he actually died himself while filming. It's stranger than fiction. So the other thing that they also that has to be talked about before we move on from production, the Top Gun soundtrack is one of the greatest soundtracks ever built for film. It has a 9-time platinum certification. It was number 1 on the Billboard charts for 5 consecutive weeks in the summer and fall of '86. It's got Harold Faltermeyer. It's got Berlin with Take My Breath Away. It's got Kenny Loggins with Playing with the Boys and Danger Zone. It's got so many hits on it. You've Lost That Loving Feeling, which was an older hit that they put back into rotation. This movie brought it back. This movie is also one of the reasons why, and we're going to get to it in Legacy, there's another famous movie with another famous Righteous Brothers that also was made by Paramount that they also used to sell the movie. But this movie is where it started. And it has to be mentioned, like, it's one of the most popular film soundtracks of all time. It's in the top 10 of most popular film soundtracks. And let's get a couple comments and we'll move on to box office. Fun fact, the F-14 Tomcat was my dad's baby at Grumman. He was lead on it. Amazing. That is fun. Grumman Corporation was a major aerospace manufacturer in Long Island, founded in 19. It was the region's largest employer. F-14 Tomcat alongside the Apollo Lunar model. So it was the last major cleanup project. So good. I hope your dad is alive and well and happy and not sick from the contamination and cleanup projects. But so it's an amazing testament to how much the Navy allowed to be filmed. And as you're watching the movie, that is one thing that does. The screenplay may not scream authentic. Some of the acting may not scream authentic. But what does scream authentic, Rich, is the naval aspect of the movie, right? The idea that these are, men that are out there doing, dangerous stuff, and the camaraderie that happens with them, and Cruise, this is the movie where Cruise, I feel it. This is the movie where Cruise takes possession of his career and just, like, everything after this is straight to the stratosphere. So we'll talk about that as well. But let's talk about box office.
Okay.
So the film the film released in 1986, a very competitive year. It was number one in the first weekend with a gross of $8.2 million. Went on to gross $176.8 million, 177 million internationally for 353.8. It's estimated at the time, Rich, sold in about 47.65 million tickets in North America in its initial theatrical run. The film grossed an additional $3 million in IMAX in 2013. Another re-release gave it another 474, bringing its domestic total to 180.3, worldwide gross to 358. We'll see what next week's total is going to do that. But here is a fun fact. When the movie opened, Rich, it opened, oh my God, why are we going so slow? Why is everything so slow tonight, Rich?
I don't know.
Going so slow. Okay, I have the fact anyway. It was the first off, it's the highest grossing film of '86, beat out other movies, including Aliens, The Fly, so many big movies in '86. It beat them all into the ground, actually. But, and here's a fun fact, Rich, it had the same theater count 6 months after its opening week. So it opened on a set number of screens. It then stayed on that number of screens for 6 months, which is unheard of. Think about the concept of a movie like Devil Wears Prada opening on 4,150 screens. Then think about the Devil Wears Prada still having that amount of screens 6 months from today. That is crazy.
Banana pants.
It's the kind of thing where, you know, the screen, they were consistently building, generating, moving, making money with this movie, and the screens just never died down for it. And it's, you know, I was reading that, Rich, and just going, that is incredible. The idea that it had this, when it left theaters 6 months from the moment it opened, it had the same number of theaters that it had when it opened. And I estimated in the 1,000 range. So now again, it could be that it's just playing around the country, or it could be that those theaters,
it's not all the exact same theaters. It wasn't, you know, like,
right.
You know, I'm sure some of them at that point were second run dollar theaters or what have you.
Yeah, but it's an incredible statistic that the theater count at the beginning of the run is the same as when the movie leaves theaters. That's fucking crazy, Rich.
Yep.
That's an insane thing we've never said on the show. We've never had a movie do that on the show. Okay, let's get into it. Critical response then and now. Here's where things are going to take a turn tonight anyway. So on Rotten Tomatoes, which is a good aggregate we use for the show, I can't talk tonight. 115 reviews. It is at 55%, so it is technically rotten. And like what you're going to find in the reviews are something akin to this. This is a kind of a perfect review. This is above all else an advertisement for the current American dream as set out by President Reagan and orchestrated by Hollywood that's at least still capable of icily efficient dream fodder. Entertaining and sexy and totally pointless. The power producers, Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, to shape the world view of America far exceeds that of presidents or premiers. That's what makes Top Gun a dangerous film, irresponsible and conscienceless. Other reviews, yes, it's formulaic. It's certainly full of cliches, plot, and dialogue, but everything is happening so fast you don't have time to think about that. So like those are like the reviews. The reason it's in a 55% is because it's slick and it's efficient filmmaking, but it's not always good filmmaking. And one of the things that I would say is, I feel the need for better writing, because this movie checks all of the, like, when the movie will get parodied in Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2 as we progress in the 80s. This movie hits every cliche. It has the dead friend. It has the daddy issues with like a father that was missing, but also may have been a hero in secret. It has a very good performance by Cruise, but he is arrogant and cocky and kind of like, it doesn't change the fact that he is dangerous in the movie. Like, he is consistently dangerous in the movie.
Okay. I will say that this is not one of my favorite films. I've maybe seen it when it came out, and maybe once or twice more since then. And
yes,
as I was watching it,
making you watch it.
Yeah, you
sorry.
Anyways, as I was watching it, I was thinking about Kilmer's Iceman character, and I'm sitting there thinking,
far more interesting.
He's right. Am I just old enough now that I don't want to identify with the Tom Cruise character? No, Iceman's right. Tom Cruise is a bad person, and he's dangerous, and he is acting outside of what you'd want your military comrades to be acting like. So I was like, oh, this is weird. Because
he's a traditional,
supposed to believe
he's a traditional
the Iceman character is the bad guy. Because he's the establishment. He's the he's the good person who's no.
It's not that he's establishment. He's responsible.
Yeah,
he doesn't leave his wingman. Like, and that's the funny thing about it. It's if you think about the 80s and like it's a movie character. Tom Cruise's movie character in this movie is essentially the cop that is constantly having his badge and his gun taken away by his captain because he shot somebody. And so that's part of the problem. Now, is it glossy? Does it look great? Does it sound great? Yes, it does. The music is great. The movie looks visually intoxicating. It also has some of the most homoerotic scenes I've ever seen in a movie where males come out of it going, good football game. It's like the scene in fucking Planes, Trains, and Automobiles where it's like, where, John Candy wakes up with Steve Martin's hand in his ass and he's like, how about them Bears? How about the Bears? And so it's glossy. It has all the perfunctory moments that, the hero's journey that we thought we needed in the 80s, which is, get over your daddy issues, find something for yourself. Don't be so responsible that you get pigeonholed, and then jump out of it and show different ways to do things. He not only does horribly dangerous things like buzzing the tower or inverting an F-14 to throw the finger at a MiG. I just did the finger to Rich, not to Rich, just to the audience, but not to the audience. I hate it when it does that. But like, he puts his other pilots in danger. There's a scene I totally forgot where Kelly McGillis is walking by a study hall of all the people, and she walks over to help him with his fucking homework because he's hot, and she's interested in him, and it's incredibly like not proper to have this relationship. Everybody else is working on their homework. She walks over, is flirting with him, and she goes, you can do
for 10 minutes. It becomes my tutor.
I can't remember what she says, but she goes, a barrel G will work perfectly fine there. I said, yeah, but if I don't do that, I can do this, and then I have guns blazing. And I'm like to myself, like, this is a woman who trains professional pilots every 8 weeks, as she says that in the script, and he just fucking sloughs her off like, no, you don't understand, honey. I can do it this way, my way, and I'll have guns blazing. My way is right. And he's such an asshole for a vast portion of the movie. And like, there are a couple moments where he comes across okay. Like, moments where he's with his friend, where he's with Goose. Anthony Edwards, by the way, great in the movie. He's fantastic in the movie because he makes Pete Mitchell moderately socially acceptable, right? Like, he makes him.
You're
so
right.
Once
No. Yeah, if he wasn't as likable, Maverick would have come off.
If they were both Maverick, right? If it was Tom Cruise and a Tom Cruise clone, and Maverick was Maverick's co-pilot, they would get shot and tossed overboard. But because Goose is like
friendly
even,
fire accident.
Even Val Kilmer and Wolfman, Val Kilmer's co-pilot, are like, "Oh, Mother Goose, how you doing, brother? Woo!" Like, Pete Mitchell, fuck you. But Goose is a funny one. Goose is like, puts his middle finger. Oh, I hate it when that happens. Like, good shit. This is a good picture. I should be a professional photographer. He makes him pass. He makes him acceptable. The romance between Kelly McGillis and Tom Cruise, they don't have a lot of chemistry. She's hot and he's young and hot. And it's just this weird 80s, like, I don't want to tell anybody in the room that your insanely stupid stunts are incredibly cool and hot, because I feel everybody would know that I just want to fuck you.
Like I said, this becomes like My Tutor or something like that for 10 minutes.
But the thing is, even as she's saying, I like some of your moves, but they're incredibly problematic and it's not textbook. Like there's a critique scene where they're like, why did you do that? Like, he put something into the computer that's so irrational that they're all looking at it and studying it. And she's like, yeah, but why would you do that when you can just do this? And he's like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, yeah, it works in the simulation, but we don't know that it would work out there. And then she goes to Iceman's thing, and Iceman's thing, she's like, this is a traditional textbook example of how to do this. Right? And nobody says anything. It immediately cuts to the next scene where Maverick's storming out of the fucking classroom, and she's walking after him, and she's like, I couldn't say that you had great moves because I love you, and it's just like, oh, again, it's fun and it's glossy, but it's not good. And then when you start it starts stacking the obstacles for our hero. Not only does he have to get over a daddy that died secretly, but is also a hero, right? And he's got a bad rep. Not only does he have to get over that, he has to get over the fact that he's an asshole, right? He has to get over the fact that
thankfully for the daddy issues, thankfully his commander at the Top Gun school flew with his dad, 30 years earlier. That was
more interesting, by the way. Another movie a movie might be made in 36 years after this one, where the Top Gun instructor might be, a cool character. Tom Skerritt and Michael Ironside are perfectly fun. And they have like moments where it's like almost like where they're critiquing him or they're trying to figure him out. And, even those moments though end in typical cliche. It's like, would you want him in combat? And Michael Ironside's like, he's incredibly creative and he does all these things, but I just don't know. And the scene ends. And I understand why the movie became a sensation, and I understand all of it. Because the packaging, it's like the best action.
It's an MTV movie.
What's up?
It's an MTV movie. It's a 2-hour MTV video, really.
Right, it is perfect packaging.
And I don't say that as a critique, as a negative or a positive. That's just what it is. Tony Scott was coming out of doing music video, if I recall correctly.
Yeah,
the movie is stylized with an inch of its life, and.
But here's the thing, Rich. If this is your favorite 80s movie, I don't look down on you, but I would also say there are a ton of other better 80s action movies. There are a ton of other better military movies. There are a ton of other better, characters than Pete Maverick Mitchell. Right? So that's the thing. Like, I don't think last week we talked about Aliens. Aliens is a traditional 80s movie. It celebrated 4th anniversary, same year as Top Gun. Top Gun beat it at the box office. You couldn't get me 100 times to watch Top Gun more than Aliens ever. But I understand why people love it, and especially if you're in the military, it is everything that you want the American military to be. But the funny thing about it is it was bought and paid for by the American military. So it is a perfect ad for the military. And let's talk, because we could talk about franchises. We could talk about the legacy. But when you have scenes like this, like I was watching this scene today, right? This scene, every person in 1986 who saw this movie and had any kind of a concept of maybe I want to be a military pilot, this scene, or this scene where they're in class and they're studying, or this scene where they're all kind of broing it to and from the planes, or this scene where they're in a where they're in a bar where they're all kind of singing the same song. If you had any kind of a concept of what you wanted in your life, this movie, the legacy of this movie, it is the single greatest military recruitment ad in the history of Hollywood. And that is its greatest legacy. Like, we're going to get a sequel in 36 years. But actually, I want to go back really quick because I do want to read Siskel and Ebert because they're always fun. Also, I don't know if anybody knows this and needs to hear this, but you can go on YouTube and just watch old reviews of Siskel and Ebert. You can just watch them wall to wall. It is the most incredible thing. I watched an episode yesterday, Rich, where they had, and this, listen to this lineup. They had Evil Dead 2, The Cannonball Run, Prick Up Your Ears, which is a fantastic movie about a playwright that was murdered, and Superman 2.
That's a hell of a weekend at the movies.
It was glorious.
A lot of sequels there, a lot of twos.
A lot of twos there. It was glorious. That was really fun. And they didn't hate Evil Dead 2. Like, Roger Ebert defended Evil Dead 2 to right. He goes, I got bored around the hour mark, but up until that point, I loved that it was like the Three Stooges, and that he was doing like Busby Berkeley dance moves, and like, Siskel was like, fuck it, it was too gory and violent. But anyway, Siskel and Ebert.
Gene Siskel was never a big horror fan.
Not a horror guy. Roger Ebert wrote, he gave the movie 2.5 stars out of 5. Right, and he wrote, movies like Top Gun are hard to review because the good parts are so good and the bad parts are so relentless. The dogfights are absolutely the best since Clint Eastwood's electrifying aerial scenes in Firefox. There's a movie I did not expect to talk about tonight. But look out for the scenes where the people talk to one another. Now, Gene Siskel gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Praising the action sequences but criticizing the romantic subplot, writing it belongs to a teenage sex fantasy film and not in a movie that deserves the genuine romantic value of, say, An Officer and a Gentleman. Pauline Kael, another great one. When McGillis is off screen, the movie is a shiny homoerotic commercial. The pilots strut around in the locker room, towels hanging precariously from their waists. It's as if masculinity has been redefined as how a young man looks with his clothes half off, and as if narcissism is of what being a warrior is all about. Also, the jingoistic thing also takes a hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that being said,
that's another thing that bugs me about the movie is it absolutely fetishizes the military. Just that whole opening sequence with the jets taking off and landing. That's honestly, it's military hardware porn is what it is.
It's exceedingly well done. It looks glossy.
Well done. It looks great. It looks, but it's just nothing that I'm interested in. And
I know.
My same problems with a lot of like Michael Bay's stuff too. It's very it shoots a lot of its hardware very fetishistically, and I'm like,
but Rich, I would think about it this way: it has to, because they've paid all that money to get that stuff on screen.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's a weird, but the legacy, like, this is the greatest single advertisement ever for the military. You want it, I was looking at numbers, right? Like after this film's release, the popular claim about the number of men who joined the Navy to be naval aviators went up 500%. 500%, Rich. Now they did dispute it, and basically 8% is what they eventually found out to be. But at the time, you couldn't tell me that people didn't think it was 500%, right?
Mhm.
It's just one of those things. I look at it and I go, it's an astonishing 80s achievement. It is like it's in amber, right? And it like the cassette could be in amber, and you're just like cracking at it, and you pop it in your VCR, and it's like, oh my god, when blockbusters roamed the earth. And it's this incredibly shiny, happy, glossy. It thinks nothing of the concept that if we blew up 4 MiGs in the 80s over the Indian Ocean, we would have been living another 80s movie called War Games, Globo-Thermonuclear War.
Oh, God, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so but that being said, like
bullshit.
The other legacy that I was thinking about today is this is the movie where Tom Cruise becomes Tom Cruise, right? This is the movie where Tom Cruise is front and center. He's wearing the aviators. He's got the smile. He's chewing gum. He's a cocky, arrogant kid. He's running around shirtless. He's playing volleyball with Val Kilmer, who's clearly about 7 inches taller than he is. Also playing with Anthony Edwards, another 7 inches taller, and Rick Rossovich, also about 10 inches taller than he is. And he's spiking and doing all kinds of stuff. So, like, all of the things that make Tom Cruise are here. The idea that he could play volleyball with a bunch of super tall elite athletes is awesome. But it's like the faux, like it's like they're playing volleyball in the trenches, that they dug for Alan Ladd and Shane. You know what I mean? Like, so all the thing is here, everything's here. The older woman concepts, like he will go on and he will start hitting on older women to the point where he gets too old and then he's dating younger women. But like that was part of it. Like all of the allure of Tom Cruise starts in Top Gun. Like he had been in other movies. Mm-hmm. He had been in a bunch of things, but this is the movie where he, like, it just, everything kind of like, it's all the gases in the universe forms a supernova, and then oh look, there's a megastar in the galaxy. You know what I mean? And then after this, he gets everything. Yeah. Now, franchise viability, here's the thing. We talk about all the time in movie circles, like Rich and I and people who love movies. Give me an example of a sequel that's better. And we talked about a sequel tonight. We talked about The Devil Wears Prada earlier. That's not better. Mm-hmm. It's a pale comparison to the original, but it's fun and light and breezy. But here, Rich, I'm going to say something to you, and I think you might agree with me on this. This sequel right here that we're going to talk about next week, this Top Gun Maverick, the movie that is widely regarded as the movie that saved movie theaters at a time when movie theaters were in a lot of trouble. I would argue it's conceivably in every way better than the original. Every way. There's not a moment in Top Gun Maverick that is not better than the original. And so that's the legacy sequel we're talking about with regards to Top Gun. Top Gun is this massive hit from the 80s, 86, so 14 years, and then Top Gun Maverick comes out in 2022, 36 years later. Talk about a legacy sequel. And the thing about it, Rich, is that Maverick is better acting, better script, a better version of Tom Cruise, right? A Tom Cruise that has worked hard to not only facilitate the image, but also to facilitate that he has a set expectations with the movies he makes. Like, we can't make a Top Gun sequel until it meets my specifications, right? And he's conceivably better as an actor and better as a person in a scene to work with. Because like the original, he's just smile and gum. Like it's all charisma and nothing behind it. But Maverick has a good script. It has some cliche parts, but for the most part, great. It also has a part that we're going to talk about next week that apparently is completely now being viewed as a ripoff of Star Wars on Star Wars Day. Good thing to talk about. But it's also got really good performances by the kids that are in the movie. It's got him learning, trying to be a teacher, and it's got a Jennifer Connelly performance that they have chemistry. Her and Tom Cruise have chemistry as opposed to him and Kelly McGillis. So, and Rich, it goes from being a movie that grossed about $380 million worldwide to a movie, we're going to talk about it next week, Rich, that grosses over $1.4 billion. Because at the time it came out, right after COVID, and the time it came out, everybody needed something to grasp onto. And Maverick was the movie that came out where everybody is like, it's good, it's action-packed, fighter sequences are better, acting's better, screenplay's better, and it is the movie that's credited with saving Hollywood, saving movie theaters at a time when movie theaters were down. That's the biggest legacy that this franchise is going to be known for as we progress. So, I think that's a good wrap up. Top Gun, one of the most finely crafted 80s movies, but also not very good, not great. Certainly not the best of 86. We're going to get more into the best of 86 later in the summer. But Rich, where can people find your stuff?
Okay. All of my writing can be found at filmbuffonline.com. We've got a Facebook page. You can also follow along with all the fun there. And my socials can be found at FilmbuffRich on Twitter and Blue Sky and Threads when I remember.
So JW the Movie Guy, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, X or whatever the guy's calling it, IMDb, all those places, Instagram. We also are now available in all of these spots. So wherever you listen to podcasts, if you just want to listen to us talk about a movie on your phone or your radio or whatever, computer, while you're doing work in the background, you don't have to watch us, our ugly mugs, because we both have faces for radio. You can listen to us on all these different places, wherever your podcasts are streamed. We're working with Podbean to get everything out there. So you just have to look for us and you'll find us. And we're starting
on your favorite podcatcher.
All your favorite podcatchers. And then, again, if you like what you saw tonight, we're here every Monday night, 9:00, talking about movies. Next week, we'll be doing Top Gun Maverick. We do Loud and Nerdy on Tuesday nights, every Tuesday night, mostly every Tuesday night. Me, Jerry Kimura, Raven, and occasionally Joe Ridgely, the Grand Poobah of the Indie Escape Network. Tomorrow night we have a very special guest. We have Jeremy Ashley, who's part of Cutting Floor Films. I keep on saying Cutting Floor Films, and he had a movie called Meat Hook that was very big on Tubi and is streaming all over the place. A lot of fun. It's a fun slasher movie. Thank you for joining us tonight. We will see everybody next week for Top Gun Maverick. Enjoy the rest of your May the 4th day. May the 4th be with you. And we will see everybody next week. Thanks for joining us for Top Gun Maverick. Or Top Gun. Top Gun Mavericks next week.
Next week.
Have a good week. Big movie opening this weekend. Are you into Carl Urban playing Johnny Cage?
Nope.
I'm into anything. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm into anything Carl Urban does. So I'm a fan of Dredd. I'm a fan of his Bones in the Star Trek reboots. I'm a fan of anything Carl Urban does. So I'm hoping. Fingers crossed it's not a stupid movie. Thank you for joining us. Have a great night. We'll see everybody next week.
Take care.